From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley to the complex mind of an architect to every far sector in space and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Lantern fans? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're back to talk about the adventures of Kyle Rayner.
And yes, this time we are full-fledged talking about Green Lantern. So we cannot do the drinking game. Now, granted, I'm only drinking water.
Right.
But if I drinked every time you said the word Green Lantern, we'd be taking washroom breaks. So,
what are you trying to say?
that you mentioned Green Lantern a lot.
Are you saying I'm obsessed? How dare you say something that's obviously
now, wait
true?
a minute. No. Obsession would be
This?
going on. No, that's not even obsession. Obsession would be going online.
Oh, boy.
And hashtagging restore the Reynolds verse.
Oh, boy.
Or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Or hashtag bring back Kyle on a post about the Silver Surfer.
Right.
That's obsession.
Yeah.
So you are not obsessed. You are a fan, but a rational, reasonable fan, as we should all strive to be.
Well, thank you.
Donnie, if you will permit me to dedicate this episode to a friend of mine, Dave, who we've known each other for 19 years. We watched every superhero movie together, be it DC or Marvel. Yes, we even watched the 2011 Green Lantern movie together, and we enjoyed it. We used to read. We used to basically, for the week, come up with a schedule of what we're going to read and then talk about it, the next day. We wrote a comic book together. And unfortunately, he passed away a week ago. He had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which, the unfortunate outcome of that disease or illness or disability is eventually, your muscles shut down, it attacks your muscles, and unfortunately, there is no overcoming that. And unfortunately, it caught up with him, as I said last week. But Dave introduced me to Green Lantern. And I remember when I met him, we used to go to the same university. And because we both have disabilities, we had one of those buses or taxis that comes directly picks us up and takes us to where we got to go. So we would always wait. I met him one day while we were waiting for this bus that was always late, never came the whole 9 years, and we would commiserate over that. And So as we're waiting at the drop-off area, I noticed his wheelchair had three things on it. And so as I was walking to the area, I noticed the wheelchair. And it had the Toronto Maple Leafs logo decal on it, which is, always a good sign. It had the Batman logo, the yellow oval. So Dave was Team Yellow Oval for sure. And it had the Superman logo. So I thought, this guy seems pretty cool. Let me start up a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And I did it. We talked about first things first. We we traded Leaf stories, and that's how Leaf fans become friends. They basically start on when did your pain with the Leafs start, and they find common ground there.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, funny enough, I mentioned Batman and Superman, and we started talking about Smallville because Smallville was just starting way back then. It had just been on for like a season or maybe two or whatever, and so our friendship just grew, and as we were reading comics, he recommended. He said, I think you should give Green Lantern a try. And I've told this story before, where I said, "You mean the guy from the Justice League cartoon?" And he goes, "Because that's all I knew about Green Lantern." He goes, "Well, yeah, but it's different because he's not currently the Green Lantern. There's this other guy, Kyle Rayner, and da 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 da." And he explained the whole story, and he basically said it's like Star Wars meets Superman. I'm like, "Oh shit, that's got to be good." So,
Yeah.
I started picking up some trades of Kyle because I thought I was going to be smart. I'm like, I'm going to catch up on this Kyle guy. And then, sure enough, a couple months later, hey, we're doing Rebirth, and I'm like, oh, now what do I do? And so I just get off of Rebirth. So Dave really introduced me to Green Lantern, which in turn, because of my enjoyment of Green Lantern, thanks to Dave, eventually in the roundabout twists and turns and different avenues and things of that nature, led me to finding your channel, your YouTube channel where you did the Green Lantern products review, and led to our friendship, and then led to this very podcast and your co-hosting of the various shows that we do. So Dave is partially responsible for our connection and this and many other podcasts that we do. So I want to dedicate this podcast and vidcast to my dear friend Dave. I miss you, buddy, and I love you, and I'll see you around. And that's it. That's what I wanted to say, and thank you for giving me that opportunity, Donnie. And,
I do want to say that I saw the cover to the comic book that you two did. So
yes, I will have to send you a digital copy of that.
okay.
We were planning to do a second issue. I haven't decided if I'm going to attempt to finish it without him. I will consult his family and see what they think, what they'd like me to do, and if they give me the okay or suggest that it is a good idea, then maybe I will venture to do that in his honor. But we will wait and see on that. But I can certainly send you a copy of the first issue for sure.
Sure.
Very proud of having done that with him. That was a special moment and a special thing to do. And the even cooler thing about that, Donnie, is, yeah, we sold the majority, the bulk of the copies on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But we did sell a portion of the copies at the local comic shop that I attend.
Oh, that's cool.
It was pretty surreal.
Yeah.
For people, because he had a Christmas party 1 year. This was 3 years ago, I think. And he said, "Bring, do you have any comics left?" I said, "Yeah, I got about 20 or 30 copies left." And he's like, "Ah, bring them to the party. We'll see if we can sell them." And everybody there wanted a copy. And
that's cool. Yeah.
They asked me to sign it. Well, right there, which was weird because I'm like, I'm a nobody, but all right, sure, I'll sign your comic. And so that was a surreal moment. So yeah, fun times, fun memories, and that's the beauty of these kind of things, is that a person can no longer be physically present, but those memories can never be taken away.
Yeah.
And so anybody that's experienced the loss of a loved one, whether it be friend, family, whatever, my words of not wisdom, because I don't have much of it, but my words of reassurance is that nobody can take those memories away from you. Mm-hmm. So cherish those, and that's what I will continue to do. And I will continue to read comics, and I will continue to watch all the superhero movies. Well, I might avoid the really bad ones, but I'll watch most of them.
Well, I hope we can do him justice today by,
dedicating this. Catwoman 2 with Halle Berry. I tell you what, I'm not watching that. So sorry, Dave, if you're watching or listening up there. That's one that I'm skipping.
Well, Dave, I hope that we do you proud today with basically what you created by leading Adam to Green Lantern, which led Adam to me. So thank you, sir. Wherever you are, we appreciate it.
And we're going to take a quick break, and because it's only been 10 minutes, but we'll take a quick break. And on the other side, we've got a whole lot of Kyle to talk about. So we'll do that. Get your popcorn ready, get your drink of choice, and we'll be right back. I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm the Emerald Enthusiast.
And for all your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows.
That includes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Masters of the Universe, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Comics Universe, including the Emerald Echo Podcast.
All right here on YouTube and Podbean. From the first podcast and vidcast to the last.
And we're back!
Indeed we are. And you seem very excited to talk about Green Lantern. As am I. This leftover cough, I got to say, is incredibly annoying. And I just want to throw it. It has nothing to do with Green Lantern. But if I had a ring, I would, do something. I wouldn't punch myself in the face.
Right.
Something to get rid of this leftover, cough.
Oh, man, you could just get Liesel Pond to come over and, clear you out in there.
I guess so. Yeah. So where are we in terms of Kyle's journey?
Okay, so Kyle made the bulk of what we're going to talk about today is Green Lantern number 61, but sandwiched in that is New Titans 120, New Titans number 121, Darkstars 29, and Darkstars 30. So Green Lantern number 61 is sandwiched in the middle of all those because Kyle is making appearances all over the place.
Yeah. And you talked about the reasoning behind that.
Yes, Kyle was doing very well at this point. People were, getting wind of this new Green Lantern, and he was very popular. And there was a lot of crossover stuff going in the 90s. It was picking up more so than the previous decades. At least that was my perception of it. And so Kyle was here, there, and everywhere. So, we've talked about this. We've talked about Rebels and the Outsiders. Kyle is a lot of different places. And so that's why when you and I started to talk about this podcast, I said, let's highlight everywhere Kyle was and give people a timeline so they don't just think it's just the Green Lantern title and the Justice League title where he's at. He's all over the place.
Yeah, which is cool. It's nice to see him have a presence in the wider DC universe, as a Green Lantern should. Mm-hmm. As opposed to just, he's confined to the Green Lantern segment of the world.
And you know what? I really like going back and reading comics like this because characters that I had forgotten about will sometimes pop up. Like today, we see Phantasm and Jarrus Minion join the fight against the Children of Trigon. And I'd kind of forgotten that they were in the midst of all this. Even though I read things, enough time passes, you forget exactly the details of some stories. And I like the fact to go back and reconnect the pieces of where Kyle was.
Agree, yeah. it's fun because I would have probably never read Darkstars
Mm-hmm.
had you not mentioned um, Green Lantern uh, was in it. So, um, so yeah, it's given me a chance to read some other, other, um, other, other books in the DC universe. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's cool. So let's get right into it. Where do you want to start?
Well, of course, let's start with New Titans number 120. And this is called, now I don't want to confuse people. There was a story just a few years ago called Forever Evil. This is a story from 1995 called Forever Evil, The Road to Hell, Part 2 of 3.
Yeah.
And it features, again, the New Titans, Arsenal, Damage, Darkstar being Donna Troy, Kyle, of course, Mirage, and Terra. And of course, you have the Children of Trigon, which is, Raven, Changeling, Deathwing, Magenta, Thunder and Lightning, and Supergirl also makes her way into this with, by the way, before I start, let's talk about the cover for a second. A dichotomy of how I think about costumes here. Supergirl's costume, I love it. It's very 90s. She has the spikes on her and the crazy hair. Okay, go ahead. Now, but on the flip side of that, Raven's costume, it's in the running for the worst costume designs I've ever seen.
Yeah, they both look bad to me. I'm like, oof.
But
she's I love 90s art.
Oh.
Like you give me an image of Spawn in the 90s, and I'm like, ooh, that looks great, right? And then I come to this, and it's like,
yeah. I'm just saying the way her costume looks. Go check it out on the internet. New Titans number 120, and she's above everybody else on the cover, and it just, there's no way that an MMA fighter could wear this and not have it like pop off in about 3 seconds. So I really don't. That's a pet peeve of mine when it comes to comics. I don't think that you should prioritize sex appeal over functionality at all. I don't think that's necessary. So
yeah, unless the comic is produced by Playboy. Then
yeah, exactly. Well, again, that's not what we're dealing with here. So
but yeah,
right. Anyway, so several pages in, again, we are at this point. Mirage has been captured by the Children of Trigon. And she sends a distress signal out several pages in, and that's to the Titans. And Kyle is actually the one who sees it. And he says, hey, there's a computer-coded distress beacon coming in. I think it's from Mirage. And I'm homing in on a signal. And so at that point, they go, and remember, Mirage is pregnant at this point. We talked about that the last time we talked about Kyle. What were your early impressions of like the, them being kind of down in the underworld and all of these various characters coming together?
It's a weird dynamic for me because I'm cool with the supernatural craziness and all the underworld and all that jazz. I like that stuff largely due to my Spawn fandom, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that I like Spawn. And I think it works with certain DC characters. Like when Raven is present, of course,
mm-hmm.
that is it makes sense because she's a daughter of Trigon and the whole all that stuff. But I will confess that it is a little weird seeing Green Lantern Kyle Rayner in the balls of for lack of a better phrasing, hell, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool but weird, and it makes sense, but not at the same time. It was like all kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
So I'm kind of mixed on it, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's very different. I don't mind Kyle. jumping in and out of these and making these types of cameos. And in fact, one of the things he does to get down to where Mirage is he makes this giant like gun construct that like smashes its way like through the floor and like leads them down to where Mirage is.
Yeah. Oh, the art was great. I love the art. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The art was fantastic.
Yeah. And of course, the majority of this is just a huge battle between these, groups, the Titans fighting, Raven and her minions here. And it is somewhat fairly matched until Supergirl makes her appearance.
Yeah. Supergirl was interesting because it's like it plays into the whole thing about being manipulated with magic and stuff like that. Which is, Superman and Supergirl and all the Kryptonian people, or the super family, if is a better way to refer to them, is susceptible to magic. So that makes sense, seeing her in that respect.
Right. For those of you who wonder why Supergirl is with the Children of Trigon, that's why she is under like Raven's control at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, in fact, at one point, Kyle has just rescued Tara, and all of a sudden here's Supergirl, and she's like, there's no one to help you now. The Children of Trigon want you. And, Tara, she's like, things are going from awful to impossible.
Yeah. It just kept getting worse.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, I love all these shots with Supergirl with the armbands with the spikes sticking out. Again, super 90s, and not to everybody's taste, but as somebody who likes 90s comics, I do like that. So yeah, and they also there are some like panels that just make Supergirl look like just incredibly evil, Yeah,
okay, they did. I didn't like the costume, but they did a good job of making it look terrible. Like terrible as in threatening and villainous and things. Yeah. So make no mistake, when you look at Supergirl, you can tell like this art is a time capsule of when it came out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very much so. And she waylays Donna. Kyle jumps in to try to protect Donna, and he gets his butt handed to him too. Because again,
I really love the relationship between those two.
Oh yeah, and remember, we're not, we're talking about kind of an uninhibited Supergirl here because she's not really seeing Kyle or the Titans as friends or allies. She's under Raven's control, so she's cutting loose or whatever, and the Titans they're at a disadvantage against her. So, which makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think that even with magic at play, portray the super members of the super family as really powerful. So when they come up against other heroes or villains in the DC universe, you have to put respect on that set of characters. Like, one of the things I hate is when you see a Kryptonian, be it Superman or Supergirl, Superboy to a lesser extent, the Con-El, because he's a clone, he's not exactly Kryptonian. But I hate to see them put in the Brooklyn Brawler position where they're just a jobber and that's it. Like, it's bad because when the Brooklyn Brawler was already in the ring that he was going to lose.
Right.
Like, he didn't have an entrance music, right? And not to just so I like the fact that they showed her as a strong, formidable opponent, and then later hero when things kind of turn themselves around.
Mm-hmm. And this is a point I want to make. I think a lot of fans fall into this trap of always wanting their person to come out on top of every battle. And to me, one of the attractive things about Green Lantern, be it Kyle or another Lantern, is the fact that they aren't always the most powerful character in the battle. They've got to think their way around it. and figure out how they're going to use the ring to compensate for maybe a greater power level.
Yeah, yeah.
And we see that here. Kyle tries to encapsulate Supergirl and stop her, and she instantly breaks his construct. And great art here, by the way, which with her just declaring, "With all the power at my command, there's nothing that can contain me," and she breaks out of the construct. Really, that's the way it should be with an evil, fired-up Supergirl and a young Kyle Rayner. It only makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Kyle's sort of ingenuity and the way they've been. All the stories we've read have really keyed in on that. That he's very creative and he finds his way out with while he's learning how the true capabilities of this ring. He finds himself out of certain situations, and maybe that's the fact that the character is an artist, right?
Right. Yeah. And like I said, at this point, we also have to remember Kyle is still young. He's still learning. We're not talking about somebody who has a tremendous amount of experience with the ring, and all of a sudden he's confronted in just kind of this random encounter by Supergirl and the children of Trigon. That's a lot to deal with.
Absolutely.
So it's actually at the end of this issue that we see Supergirl neutralized, at least temporarily, by Jarvis, Minion, and Phantasm.
Yeah.
So let's rate issue number 120 and 121 together, because I don't feel like, Kyle's in this, but again, he's playing a role in this, but it's not really his book. So I don't really I feel like we should rate these as these two issues together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. So now we come on issue Forever Evil, part 3 of 3, and Kyle's on the cover of this, and he's getting his butt handed to him once again by Supergirl. So actually, that's a great action cover.
It is.
You've got a number of characters on the cover. Supergirl, Mirage.
And that's another thing about 90s
Donna,
art. The covers in the 90s were always fantastic.
Yeah. So the battle is raging on. Are we talking about Azarath here, by the way? I feel like they named where they were at some point in the...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was Azarath. That would make sense.
Yeah.
So the battle is raging on. Donna gets captured at this point, and they're going to try to take her over. And that's some really scary art, by the way. She's this jutting rock in the ground, and she's tied to it, and she's surrounded by the children of Trigon, and they're trying to take her over, and Raven is hanging upside down in that ridiculous looking costume, but nonetheless she still looks really intimidating. And so she's hanging upside down like a bat and talking directly into Donna's face. And Kyle breaks away and comes to her rescue. So, obviously, he's angry at this point, and I like that he makes kind of this monstrous construct to pull Raven away from Donna. So, what were your early impressions?
The construct was cool, but it was cool. I hate saying that it was cool to see any character that angry, but you know what I mean when I say that.
Yeah.
His protection of Donna, right? And he said, "I've already lost one woman that I love. I'm not going to lose another." I thought that was a nice callback, of course, to Alex, right?
Right. Well, that never leaves Kyle, really, especially in this run, the majority of this run. We still see him mention it every once in a while, but yeah, that's still on Kyle's mind. So, like you, I like the idea that he's protective of Donna, not just as an ally, but obviously, he's falling in love with her. So,
yeah. No, I like I said, I liked his reaction. It shows that there are feelings there, and I love that as we've gone along in the different books. You see, I look like the Macho Man when I'm doing something with my hands here. Yeah, the cream of the crop, whatever that. Yeah,
a cup of coffee. Yeah.
Throughout all the books that we've read, where this relationship has been building, it's been a gradual, progressive, build up. So once it culminates or happens or sort of develops itself like into whatever it's going to end up being, it will feel authentic, and I like that. I like when relationships are built like that, and they're worked into the story where they're part of the story, but they don't overtake the story. Am I making sense?
Oh yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So again, the fight rages on here. We see that Mirage's baby is in peril.
Yeah.
And yeah, and lots of great art here, and with Mirage fearing for the baby. And and again, Kyle with a lot of creative constructs here. At one point he goes to help Minion.
You know what's interesting? Just because you keep mentioning the constructs, and I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool because no matter what book Kyle is in, he always has fantastic constructs, which is you'd think would be hard to do given every artist is different that works on these different books, right? So it's not all Darryl Banks, and so the mind of each artist has to come up with these constructs.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we see here at the end is as the group of heroes escape, Kyle creates this giant jet, and he's the one who kind of gets them all out. That's another thing I like about Green Lanterns in the Ring is that they can create things like various vehicles, whether it's flying vehicles or cars, trucks, whatever, to be the transport for the heroes or civilians. It's another way that they can be effective as heroes. And so I've always really liked that part of the Green Lantern mythos.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I also like the dialogue here is, Arsenal says, do you think there's enough power left in your ring to take us to San Francisco? And Kyle goes, sure, it's brought us this far, and where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, that was very dad joke-esque. I thought of you when I read that. I'm not going to lie, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But actually, in the end of this, Mirage does lose the baby.
Yeah.
We see Kyle by her bedside with the Titans at the end of this issue. So,
I mean, it was dealing with that's some heavy stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, look, devilish things and demons. I mean, that's heavy in a different sense. But losing a child is something real, that's real world tangibility. And that's some deep, heavy stuff to be dealing with.
So what would you rate those two issues?
Okay, story-wise, as a whole, not just Kyle's appearance, because Kyle's stuff was really cool. But as a whole, I'd say a 3.5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna give it about a 3.5. I don't want to. Who was the artist on this? I don't want to blame him for Raven's bad costume. It probably wasn't his idea, but William Rosado. But this was written by Marv Wolfman, so I mean, it was an effective story. Even though I'm not as invested in some of the Titans characters as I am, Donna and obviously Kyle. But I did like Kyle's role in this, and for just kind of a 2-issue, cameo, I really did like his role in this. And again, seeing him kind of functioning with other heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then art-wise, what would you rate it?
Oh, for the really outside of Raven's costume, I'm going to give it about a 4.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.5 just because I didn't like Raven's costume or Supergirl's. So it's a 3.5, yeah.
That would have been cool to see in my opinion, on the Supergirl show. Her with the spikes and the crazy hair. I would have dug that. Of course, I really wanted to see her as a Red Lantern, too. But you knew that already. Anyway.
I'm shocked. I should have bolted myself to this chair. But yeah, no. cool to see Kyle in this, interacting with other Titans, and the contracts were awesome. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we move on to Darkstars 29. This is another issue where Kyle just played a small role, but it was actually a pretty important role for his story going forward. So let me give you just a very brief summary here, a brief synopsis, as Bret Hart would say. Let me give you a brief synopsis here. Give you some of the overall story and what it means as far as Kyle's journey. So Farron Kolos and Hudva Jedgar, they are going to their execution when the rebel group that Jedgar is a part of, they crash into the site and they rescue them. To Kolos' surprise, the group is being led by a version of Clash, who is the mercenary he fought back in his universe. So the rebels take Kolos to their base, which is in an asteroid field, where they give Jedgar, he gives him a Darkstar exomantle that they stole from the tyrant Kolos, and Kolos accepts the suit and decides that to free the Genuines and take them home. So back in the other universe, John Stewart, he leads.
Hey, I know that guy.
Right, exactly. We know that guy.
Yeah.
We talk about him on other episodes of the
there
Emerald
is a
Echo.
real John Stewart, but it's not that one.
Right.
The fictional John Stewart is much cooler.
Right. Right. I would agree. But we talk about John right here on the Emerald Echo podcast, available right here on YouTube as well as iTunes and Podbean. So. All right, so John leads a fleet of refugees from various planets that were ravaged by Simon. That's another character we're familiar with here.
Yeah, we talked about these situations, yeah.
Yeah. So John deems Mo as the person that he wants to lead the refugees after, due to his background as a homeless man, and Mo decides to, take him up on this offer.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, we cut back to Earth. Now, all that's important to various other stories, but the big thing here is that Donna reveals to Kyle that she has lost custody of her son.
Yeah, we've been tracking this. This has been a development that's been going on as we've been reading thus far.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see, again, the through line and the consistency of continuity continuing here. Yeah.
Right. And obviously that's big to have. We've seen some of Donna's distress up until this point, but now she's undergone this, horrifically traumatic event. And so Kyle is part of her support system.
Yeah.
So, we know now, by the way, that Kyle is not always the best boyfriend. So that does make things kind of interesting that not only does he have, Donna, does he have this woman in his life, but this is a very adult situation that he's dealing with. Somebody who has undergone the trauma of losing custody of their child.
Yeah. It's interesting watching her turn to Kyle because, Kyle doesn't have children and he's relatively young. So, it's interesting that she's found him to be her comfort. He doesn't have a base or experience in this particular situation.
Well, that makes for interesting writing when you see a character like this put into a situation where they don't have experience and he doesn't know what to do. Kind of like, you can parallel that with The Ring. So now he's in, two situations where he's learning.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point.
So now we move on to, do we rate this?
Are we going to do the two of them together?
We could do that.
The two Darkstars like we did with...
yeah, let's do that. Although, Green Lantern 61, which is going to be the bulk of what we're going to talk about here, the Darkstars issue sandwich that between them.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and jump on over to Green Lantern number 61. By the way, one of my favorite titles to a Green Lantern story. It's called To Hell and Calabac.
I gotta be honest. That was a clever wording.
Right, exactly. So, by the way, the cover art by Andy Smith. And it actually starts off with what looks like a fight between Donna and Kyle, which is really not. They're just kind of, having a playful little fight
I was
with,
confused. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I knew something had to be up. I was like, are they getting mind controlled or whatever? Someone getting mind controlled. But they're actually on their way to a picnic on Mars, and they're just kind of having a playful fight. Kyle makes this giant, like, space looking like motorcycle that's really cool. It's like a 2-page splash with Kyle on this giant motorcycle. Yeah. So anyway, they're on their way to a picnic on Mars, and it doesn't take long for the kind of immature part of Kyle to rear its head, because as he's making the picnic, he decides to use his ring to make a construct of a woman in a French maid outfit. And Donna's not so hip on that.
You know what, though? I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's understandable, but I'm like, you've got a sad girlfriend here. Now it's probably not the time to break out that, Kyle, but,
I would have been like, all right, I'm with, let's say, the Earth, the Earth 2 wife.
Right.
And then I'd make a construct of like the Earth 5 wife or something like that. That would be me. So I understand, Kyle. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand, my friend.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were all young once, I remember that. But anyway, I do want to say Andy Smith draws a really good Darkseid. There's two, we see both, Darkseid on Apocalypse as well as Kyle and Donna on Mars here. And so what we see is that Darkseid is watching them, knowing that he's the last of the Green Lanterns. And he sends Calabac to confront and test Kyle Rayner to see if Kyle can actually be a threat in the future.
Yeah.
And what I want to say was Andy Smith draws a really good Darkseid, by the way.
He does. And it's funny because every time I saw Darkseid, I thought of Peter Vera, who, really seems to like Darkseid and screams Euxis every time he sees Darkseid. So I thought of Peter there in that moment.
Yeah. So they use a boom tube to go to Mars, and a fight ensues between Kyle and Calabac, with Kyle kind of struggling because, Calabac's a powerhouse. Well, and Donna, she's no wilting flower. She joins in the fight too. I gotta say, my favorite panel was Kyle makes a very interesting looking hammer and uses it on Calabac. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
You noticed that? Yeah. Kyle, by the way, there's lots of little Marvel instances when, Ron Marz, a prolific writer who's written for both Marvel and DC, for many decades. We already saw, we mentioned Bleecker Street, and there was a cameo by a character that looked like Wong. And here we see Kyle basically make Mjolnir, a construct Mjolnir.
Yeah. So a lot of Thor teasing and a lot of Marvel kind of nods.
Yeah. And Marvel, back in the 90s, at least for a while, when we had like Amalgam Comics, Marvel and DC were on better terms back then. So,
yeah, they used to be more open to crossovers, which is.
So
I wish he'd come back at some point.
Kyle's basically able to get, at least temporarily, the best of Calabac, who goes back to Apocalypse, and then at one point, Calabac tries to get the ring off of Kyle, and when he goes back to Apocalypse,
which is a dumb move,
right? Darkseid is, Darkseid just wanted to test him, and so Darkseid is angry at Calabac because he disobeyed his orders.
Yeah.
So, must be hard to have that kind of dad.
Yeah, I don't see him as winning Dad of the Year. So yeah.
But that's not all in this issue. There is a huge twist at the end. We cut to the Nevada desert with this woman who is driving down the road, and she says, hop in. What's your name, handsome?
Yeah.
And guess who it is? Gray temples and all. It's Hal Jordan.
That was a shocker. I wasn't expecting that. But I will say, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to read the next issue. I said that.
Yep. Well, I mean, and that really is some fun stuff that we see eventually with Hal coming back into play, because he really does. And I've always said this. I really think that Ron Mars gave Hal Jordan a dimension that made him more interesting forever. And it's not that I didn't think that Hal Jordan was interesting before, but watching Hal Jordan's development through Volume 3 after Emerald Twilight, I just really love it because he's so kind of morally ambiguous in so many places. You see glimpses of the old Hal Jordan, but he's still on this path of villainy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you do see little glimpses of, it's like, oh, that's the Hal I remember. And then it's like, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah. But yeah, I really love issue 61 there. I thought it gave some great development to the relationship that was being built between Donna and Kyle. And and even though I like the Jade relationship, so much, you could see that Ron Mars had this definitive plan. And then, later on, he was told after he basically built this relationship, oh, by the way, we need her back in the Wonder Woman books. And so he had to, switch his game plan. But you can see that he's playing the long game with this relationship.
Yeah. And because, I'm nothing if not consistent, Donnie. And, as we discussed Donna Troy, I am constantly reminded of Connor Leslie, who of course played Donna Troy on Titans.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
Because of that association, I just put it out there that Donna Troy, by way of Connor Leslie, is on the list. You didn't think I was going to be able to get it in today, did you?
Well, there you go, man. I'll tell you, she's drawn very well by several artists here, and she's very attractive. So,
again, if I had an animated comic book version of myself, there was if I had a multiverse list of comic book drawn characters, Donna Troy would be on the list.
Mm-hmm.
I just find ways to do it. I should be rewarded for all the different ways I come up with a multiverse list. It's not easy trying to find new ways to click this pen. Me and Chris Jericho have a conversation. I don't know how we do it. He may sue me for taking his gimmick, but it's all. Right. I don't want to talk to him.
You really think Chris Jericho was, trolling the internet at night for, these dark corners and finding our podcast? Probably if he is, by the way, thank you, Chris.
Probably not. Well,
Probably
you
not.
His figure, so there's that.
Well, maybe, yeah.
So you should at least check on your. You should at least check on your channel.
Yeah. Well, Danhausen, and by the way, Chris, if you checked out my channel, thank you. Danhausen might watch us. You never know.
Yeah.
So, Darkstars number 30. Actually, Kyle makes a guest appearance on the cover here.
Are we rating the Green Lantern issue by itself?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Again, I really like this issue, and it's a 4.5 out of 5 for the story.
For me, I'm going to go 5 for story and 4.5 for art. Did I cut you off? I'm sorry if I did.
Yeah, I didn't say the art, but yeah, for me, the art is 4.5 as well. So 4.5 and 4.5. Mm-hmm. Which, if my math is correct, makes a 9.
Right. Well, there you go. You learned that in college, right?
Hey, listen, that's as much math as you're going to get out of me.
With all the multiverse wives numbers that I hear, I have a hard time believing.
Actually, listen, I don't know if you saw my tweet yesterday, but I had a new tweet because apparently that for whatever reason, Haley Steinfeld is posting a lot of new pics.
Mm-hmm.
Or
I did see that. Yeah,
there are a lot of new pics of her finding their way on the internet, and they look fantastic. So my new tweet was I posted one of the pictures and I put MVW, which is Multiverse Wives, plus E19, which is Earth 19, equals, and then I did a smiley face with the heart eyes, the fire symbol, a pen symbol, and a list. So that's my new. That's the math. So I did equals. Want to check out my kind of math? Go to my Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm pretty sure that I saw that video of the one of her in the car too.
Yeah. That's when I posted the Ric Flair GIF.
Yeah, I saw you and some of the guys having a good time with that. So
that's what we do. That's what Twitter's for.
Right.
Twitter's for fun. It's not for harassing studio executives and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, computer, cooperate here. I'm doing a podcast. Oh come on. Get out of here.
It froze?
No, it's trying to sell me makeup.
Well, Donnie, if you
I'm sorry that I don't wear makeup. Excuse me. By the way, though, on one of our future podcasts, just in a week or so, we're going to have an expert on makeup as a guest star.
Oh, I thought we were trying on makeup. I said, nobody cleared this with me.
I'm sorry. I'm just.
And look, we're collaborative, but if you want me to put on makeup, we got to have a discussion. I may shoot that down. No offense. It's just.
Yeah. All right. So let's go on to Darkstars number 30. And this is a story called Wake the Dead. So Kyle and Donna are still on Mars, and they happen to come across Martian Manhunter, another member of the Justice League. He had come to the planet to investigate some activity that was suspicious to him. The Justice League satellites had picked this up. So they find troops from the Syndicate mounting a base inside some ruins. And John is instantly furious because, again, this is his home. And to see someone desecrating any of the remains of his home is obviously infuriating to him. So with the help of Donna and Kyle, they're able to take down the Syndicate's facility.
Yeah.
So there are other things in this issue, obviously, but that's kind of the end of Kyle's role here. So we also see, by the way, Farron Kolos getting used to the new exosuit in another part of the story.
I will say, I mean, I don't think we want to go into the full story because Kyle's not
right,
the main star of that. But I will say that while I'm not going to lie to everybody. I'm not an avid reader of the Darkstars books or property, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy seeing John Stewart as well, and the sort of real extreme sci-fi nature of that particular title. I enjoy it. Again, if this book was still going on, would I pick up a monthly issue? Maybe not, but I enjoyed what I read, so I will give it that. And I like seeing Martian Manhunter and talk about all the Mars stuff.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That's cool. It made me hungry for Oreo cookies while I was there.
I like. Just let me interject here. I like the versatility that you're seeing Kyle here. First, he's in kind of this magic world, dealing with Raven and the Children of Trigon. Now he's kind of in a space age story. Back with more of what is usually the home of the Green Lanterns, but we see how versatile he can be with all of these other characters. So I like the fact that we see him obviously my favorite of the 5 issues here was Green Lantern 61 because it focused the most on Kyle, but you see how he can be utilized by the rest of the DC universe.
Yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I like how even though they're guest appearances, we constantly see, even in these guest appearances, what I like is that we're constantly seeing character progression with Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like every little cameo, we get another layer of progression. So I like that a lot. And
you can understand how Ron Mars did that because this is his character, but other well, not only other artists but other writers seem to be kind of following that lead and adding layers that all kind of work towards Kyle.
It's almost like they talk to each other,
but I mean, they're all kind of working towards Kyle becoming this very layered, deep character. So, by the way, this was written by Michael Jan Friedman, and the penciler was Mike Collins.
Yeah, I mean, the art looked great. Really enjoyed the art.
Kyle was really jacked in this book.
Yeah, so. he had a bit of like the Vince McMahon workout probably happened. Is my guess.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm not going to make a Vince McMahon joke. I'm not going to pile it on. Never mind. Anyway. Anyway.
Well, we can. We can see. Again, this isn't a wrestling podcast, but I'll say it here anyway. We can respect what Vince McMahon did for professional wrestling, and the place that he put it in, over the decades. That doesn't mean I have to think he's a great human being as a person. So.
Well, and hey, let me tie that back to Green Lantern here. With comics and really any form of media, you will eventually run across someone who is involved with one of your favorite properties who you may not care for.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary to learn to separate the art from the artist sometimes. Now, luckily, sometimes you run into people like Ron Mars and Darryl Banks who are really great people. And you get to know them too, the creators of your favorite characters. But sometimes you're going to run into somebody who you may find unsavory. That doesn't mean that you have to stop liking the property, or make it some kind of moral crusade to try to bring the thing down, like I see on Twitter all the time. Oh, somebody wrote this now, and this person did this over here, so now we got to all go sell our comics. And I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You don't have to approve of what someone did.
Exactly. There's the separation of
church and state. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of true, though. It's like, I respect what he did in his field.
Right.
But as a human being, he leaves a lot to be desired.
And especially when you're dealing with a long-time property, it's inevitable that you're going to run into either a writer or an artist who may have done some things or said some things that you don't approve of.
Absolutely.
So, anyway. So that is your lesson of the day right here on the Emerald Echo podcast.
There it is. We entertain, and we or Donnie teaches, and I give you fumbled up versions of math. That's what I do. Nobody's hiring me to tutor their kids. I'd be teaching the boys about their future multiverse wises. I'd be like,
exactly.
Come here, let me make some notes for you. But all right, so let's rate the 2 Darkstars issues then.
I'm going to go 4 and 4. I didn't think the art was perfect, but I did like it. And I liked Kyle, again, being involved in, kind of the space story and getting him back to kind of the roots of the Green Lanterns back into a space story. I liked it. And again, I liked, showing another layer of versatility for Kyle.
Yeah, I'm going to give 4 for both issues, for both the art and the story. Look, bottom line is I'll read anything with Kyle in it. But when he wasn't there or wasn't featured as heavily, I still enjoyed it. And here's the best part. For a book that I wasn't really aware of and I don't regularly read, for both issues, I paid about $5.80 some odd cents on Comixology.
Yeah.
And when I read both of them, I wasn't saying, man, I wish I could have my money back.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I have most of the Darkstars stuff. I'm still trying to complete that run. I'm glad that I actually have, DC Universe, because that helps me with the Titan stories. I have trouble finding the new Titan stuff. I don't know why, but
yeah. We have DC, like DC Universe is now in Canada, but it's still kind of like in its infancy, working. Like you have certain things that we don't have, and vice versa. So it's still kind of catching up.
Right.
So that's why I go to Comixology, or I guess Amazon now. Plus, I get it's a digital copy, but going to Amazon and actually purchasing it makes me feel like I own it. Whereas on DC Universe, it's kind of like I'm glorified renting it.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what you're doing. I mean,
right. So
if you decide to stop DC Universe, it's not like you're going to have that copy. So that is the flip side. So,
and it's like I'm not obliged to have, even though I do, I'm not obliged to have Amazon Prime to be able to go to buy the comic. Right. So it's like I do kind of own it, even though it's only a digital copy. So that's why I typically go to Amazon. But anyway, yeah. So that brings this walkthrough and journey of Discovery, which is a Marvel book, which ties back to Thor, which we referenced earlier. I didn't intend that, but here we are.
Yeah.
But that brings this jaunt through space with Kyle and hell with Kyle to an end. Okay. There's more.
One thing, just real quick.
Is Henry Cavill making a cameo on this podcast?
He's right out in the hall. Don't you know that?
That's fascinating.
I hashtagged it and it came true.
Is your hall called Hall H?
I just want to point out for Green Lantern fans, if you're not reading Jurassic League, there is a new character called the Green Torch in this issue. He is a dinosaur Green Lantern. The whole thing is about dinosaur versions of the Justice League. So if you want something that's very different, go ahead and pick up this, because
Jurassic Park DC crossover confirmed.
Basically is what
They're
it is.
They're going to do a movie. So. That's it. David Zaslav is going to greenlight the movie. Hashtag it now.
So there we go. That's the end.
Hashtag Jurassic DC Universe.
Yeah. You know what? I would watch this in movie form. You know I would.
And Donnie, I know it's not Batman related.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this might piss people off, but I already mentioned Henry Cavill. I know it's going to piss people off because he didn't show up and whatever. And I kind of made fun of that. So be it. But it is Comic-Con weekend as of this recording.
Right. Okay.
And we'll talk about the Shazam footage and the Black Adam footage another episode. But because it is Comic-Con, and we just talked about a bunch of comics, there is some DC related comic news that dropped yesterday that I'm excited about.
Okay.
And I want to mention here since it's fresh in my mind. And I'm going to borrow from the Todd father himself in the way he chose to announce this. And it's McFarlane, Capullo, Spawn, Batman, December. There is a Batman Spawn crossover 48-page one-shot coming in December. And you can bet that this man right here is buying a physical copy of that.
So it's a new story? It's not a reprint of the old Batman Spawn
They're
crossover?
reprinting the old one, but they're doing a new story.
Oh, okay, cool.
And
Because I remember that from college.
And you and I, sir, are going to review that very issue at some point in December.
Hey, I'm down.
Because we've already talked about doing a Spawn section of this podcast. Right. We just got to figure out which issues to get you sort of up to speed on. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Today is a hand day.
A cup of coffee, yeah.
But we're going to figure out which Spawn issues to get you reacquainted with the character is a good way to, I guess, put it. And then we're going to start our journey through Spawn, much like we do with Kyle, but more modern, right? So that's what we're going to do. And
one last thing, speaking of Green Lantern, I want to say, and you talked about the Todd Father. Thank you, Todd Father, for making a Parallax figure.
Yes, which
even if it was a gold label and I had to pay a little more for it. So
you've already bought it, and
it's on the way. Yes.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah.
It's on the way, so you're not basing it on a rule. Like, it's not like Todd McFarlane said, well, maybe there'll be a Parallax figure, and then you got all hyped only to realize, oh crap, that was a rumor. It's actually on the way.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
There's actually a deal in place.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Contracts have been signed. Right. Money's been exchanged, and it's on its way to whatever. You should call your room Hall H, just so. Hall B for Hall.
I call this room the Central Power Battery.
Hall E.
This is where I come to recharge.
Hall E for the Emerald stuff.
Hall E, yeah.
Not Wally, Hawley. But anyway, that's a whole nother character. Anyway, that's it for the podcast. We're rambling. Hope you enjoyed it. Well, I had fun. And you know what I'm going to go do now? Just for fun and just because I know it's going to bug people, I'm going to go have an O. Henry because he wasn't Hall H, but there's going to be a chocolate that I'm going to be eating. And until next time, we'll be back with more Green Lantern talk, more Marvel stuff. We've got to finish Miss Marvel, which we will do with our special guest. As I said, we're gonna talk about starting that Spawn section of the podcast. Lots of stuff coming from us. So subscribe, tell your friends. If you want to follow us and talk about this stuff or yell at me for whatever I said, which could happen, you can do that on social media. So Donnie, where do they track you down before I tell them where to find me?
You can find me on Twitter or TikTok as the Emerald Enthusiast. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is separate from this channel. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern.
You can find me reading and talking about comics or munching on an O. Henry bar at Adam_Leafsfine on Twitter. We also have a Twitter handle solely for the network where we just basically post the episodes, and that's at MMNPDC. We also have a Facebook group, excuse me, listed somewhere in the description below. Click that, I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, remember that Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern of Volume 3, right?
Volume 3, yes.
Is forever. From his first picnic on Mars with Donna Troy to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.